Is time infinite? Why there is 4 dimensions? What it is this initial singularity? And how the dark energy is associated with time? To begin with, we need to clarify what the infinity is. By the way, with the initial statement, we don't have problems, even that we aren't facing with infinite in everyday life. But we still understand that real numbers are continuous, the universe is infinite, the p number, countless arguments of procrastination, and so on. But with time, everything works in a different way. We are so used to it that we even don't think about it, what time it is, and we can't even imagine that anything could happen to it. However, quite a difficult question: what if time will ever run out? And if so, more importantly, what will happen with us? So, what is the time? According to the theory of relativity, we live in a 4-dimensional universe. Besides the usual for us 3 dimensions as width, height, and length, we have the first one, a time. It turns out that all of us are 4-dimensional objects, but how to understand it? Imagine that near with everyone placed an invisible axis. Along this axis placed us in our usual 3 dimensions, but in every moment of time while we exist. This is it, it's 4-dimensional objects. However, we are not able to see the whole picture at once. We can only perceive one state after another, very similar to what we see in the games, when new frames exchange old ones, and in this way we are getting a smooth image. And according to the theory of relativity, for everyone the flow of time can have a different rate. But for simplicity we can imagine that the whole universe is moving just along one invisible axis. Interesting, does this invisible axis have a beginning? There was kind of the Great Explosion, but what was before it? The before of Great Explosion there was nothing, neither space or time, even YouTube or any kind of entertainment, there was nothing at all. But in reality things were a little bit different. According to our series, at the moment of Great Explosion there was initial singularity, at which curvature of space-time, temperature, and even density of materials became infinite. But in singularities our series doesn't work anymore, they simply doesn't work with such infiniteness. In other words, all known laws of nature are violated there, and there is no point to take anything before the Great Explosion. Yes, maybe time was flown there, and even something happens, but they can't make any difference to anything after explosion, because if laws of nature don't work even for a moment, any casualties are violated and nothing can be predicted. In fact, that's kind of reset to factory settings, just for the universe. So there is a sense of counting time after Great Explosion, because whatever happened before is insignificant for our world. Okay, time has a beginning, but interesting, does it have an end? As time is subjective things, and each of us can have a different rate of time, for someone it can flow steady, and for another one it's over. For example, a sloppy astronaut who fell inside a dark hole. In the center of black hole located a singularity. At this singularity, time is end, and if astronaut reach a center, he will get this reset to factory settings. We don't know for advance what will happen to him. Maybe for him begins a new countdown, new timeline, or just an end. But we know for sure that all time for him gone forever. But that's not the worst scenario, as time for each of us can accidentally stop. It will happen for sure when we find out ourselves inside singularity, in which the whole universe will shrink in. As we know for now, our universe is expanding, but by any of countless scenarios the expanding will eventually stop, and here begins the shrinking in of universe. And that is even possible for a couple of reasons. First of all, the galaxies are attracted by gravity. That fact obviously breaking and expanding and shrinking in future. That fact obviously breaking and expanding and provoke shrinking in future. The second thing is dark energy. This mythical force that accelerates galaxies is still a great mystery. We still have no idea what it is or how it will behave. It can turn out that dark energy disappear in one moment, and then what? So hypothesis of shrinking in universe is still a thing. It will not happen in any time soon, probably in a billion of years, but this spectacle would be extremely explosive, if you know what I mean. What if time, which we knew is subject feeling, and we completely misunderstand it? What if there exists another time? It turns out that there is one, and it's called imaginary time. We need to understand this a little bit better. Imaginary time isn't imaginary in a sense that it's fictional or made up. It means it works with imaginary numbers. This type of numbers is really a strange one, as during rising to the square it will always get a negative number instead of positive one. Imaginary numbers cannot be marked on a normal number line. A separate axis of imaginary numbers is drawn for it, which is perpendicular to the axis of real numbers. Imaginary numbers doesn't have any sense at everyday calculations, but they are needed to solve some physics problem. And there is interesting thing that if you use them as a time in the formula of the theory of relativity, they are still will be valid. But something in particular will change. It turns out that all singularities will disappear. If considering time as imaginary time leads us to the fact that universe has no beginning and no end. The universe is just an infinite. This type of time is self-contained and has no special moments such as the great explosion or the fall into singularity. It can be compared to a globe, as the one pole is beginning in terms of great explosion and on another was is singularity, which is the end of universe lifespan. The movement along the meridian is the movement in imaginary time, and the circles of latitude show the size of the universe. The size is maximum at the equator and zero at the poles. Yes, and these points will be as singular as the poles on the Earth. That is not at all. At these points, everything will follow the laws of nature and nothing special will happen there. This concept of imaginary time was proposed by Stephen Hawking and popularized in his book The Universe in a Nutshell. More than that, he makes an assumption that imaginary time is our real time, and what we used to call a real time is, in traditional ways, is just a fiction. There is no singularity in imaginary time, and it can be even more fundamental. And our real time is just a subjective idea which was born in our struggling to describe the universe. It's hard to say for sure because we still didn't know much about time and do not fully understand what it is. For each of us, time can be over very quickly, if you're trapped in a singularity or any other problem, but for the universe as a whole, time could be infinite.